2023 has brought us a lot of upgrades, and I mean a lot of upgrades for every single team. And I want to cover it for you in this video and the impact that it's made for every single team, because with the exception of Red Bull, it's been very close, but I will talk about Red Bull in depth as well, going into the very critical upgrades for every single team. I know you guys love these videos, so please comment and like. It would mean a lot for the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's jump into it. I'm going to go in the constructor standings that we have currently as of right now. So AlphaTauri, the worst team of the year, obviously in 10th place. Let's go over the upgrades that they have brought. Now they have not, as you can see by his chart, also a shout out to Louis Fe F1 2023. This guy is amazing. What he's done here, gonna be using these charts, beautifully done. Thank you for that. And as you can see, AlphaTauri has not had a lot of upgrades really in their years. But the real critical ones that we've seen as of right now was in Silverstone, and it's not really Monaco, but it's more of Australia, because the floor came and that actually made a pretty big impact to their car. Now floor upgrades will always be the more important of any upgrade really on here. As you see, nose, front wings, you see it, I don't have to explain it to you. Diffuser also being a big thing. The ones and the twos that you see, that's for drivers, so indicated by if only one driver had it, and then it came for the second driver. So that's why you see in Azerbaijan 2 floor fences for driver 1 and then driver 2. Now in Australia, the actual floor upgrade that came was supposed to help with the slow speed cornering. That was the biggest thing that they were lacking going into the beginning of the season. And they put a lift into their floor and actually brought up the actual floor itself to the limit that the FIA allows for. And it does seem to help. The car isn't actually that bad in slow speed cornering as much. Their biggest weakness is still within the brakes. Now in Silverstone, they do bring a whole bunch of upgrades, a lot to the rear wing, beam wing, rear suspension, floor again, and some part of the actual side pods. And this was mainly done to the side parts of the pods, not the actual inlet itself. But this upgrade did seem to bring some performance. They were actually pretty decent in Belgium, and if you were to count them out in the beginning of the year, that car in a straight line was not fast. So this is a big step up, and the team is looking a lot better. With the point in Belgium, AlphaTauri is on their way up. I hope so, but the car's cap isn't anywhere near to where every other top teams are, so I don't expect them to jump that much further, but it is nice to see. Hopefully Daniel and Yuki can score maybe a little bit more points and maybe propel themselves to 9th. Let's see. It'd be nice to see if Daniel Ricciardo can score some points in this car. Next team in the constructor standings is Alfa Romeo, who also, looking at this, brought the least amount of upgrades this year. Their biggest upgrade package came in Monaco. Silverstone was also a huge package for them. Now in Monaco, they've always been a car that's actually been pretty decent in slow and medium speed cornering. They didn't have a great qualifying due to traffic and really issues, but the actual car itself did bring a pretty big package. Now the car almost looks virtually the same as it did in the beginning of the year, but floor upgrades and an actual front wing that they brought in Australia made some differences to the car. But the floor upgrade in Monaco and the way that they set up the rear suspension is different now, and their tires have been a little bit better. And they still have the issues like the Ferrari from before without its actual upgrades that it has. So the Alfa Romeo is kind of slowly progressing. They said they were pretty weak in high-speed cornering, and in Silverstone they tried addressing that. Now, if Bottas was actually able to finish his qualifying and they were actually able to get a fuel sample, they were actually pretty quick in Silverstone, and in Hungary, in a medium-speed corner track, they were pretty quick. So the car is not bad. They say the balance in the car is splendid, but still, it's not really getting anywhere. They're 9th in the constructors. I expect them to kind of continue this trend. It's tough when the team is trying to kind of compensate for Audi. They're in this weird kind of changing phase. I don't expect much from Alfa Romeo. They might even fall to 10th by the end of the year. We'll see where AlphaTauri can step up or not. They just need a lucky race. One of the two teams need a lucky race to gain a lot more points. But biggest upgrades in Silverstone and in Monaco. Next team is Williams, who has probably impressed me the most this year when it comes to actual upgrade packages, but also how they have worked. Now, this car has always been slippery in a straight line. We know that. It has continued that slippery straight line speed, but it brought a huge upgrade package in Canada, and that's really the only one that I'm going to focus on. Now, this changed up a lot. It changed up the way the side pods work. They brought in that slide that every other team has kind of done. They've changed up the way that their floor looks, rear suspension, rear brake ducts. They actually have a new rear wing to the car as well, and a diffuser trick that even teams like Red Bull and everybody else was looking into. This was a big step up to what they've actually had in their car. It is a definite step in the right progress. I'm happy to see Williams actually making some steps there. The car is already performing better. Now, it did have a pretty weak Belgium, and it seems to be shredding its tires, which, I mean, isn't great, but they've always been pretty good on their tires. It might have been a setup issue that they had in Belgium. That's my thoughts on it. I don't think this is an issue to persist along the whole entire season. They were great on their tires in really any track with the exception of this one. So let's see if the actual upgrades brought a little too much to their car that shouldn't have with downforce, and they're shredding through tires a lot quicker. Hopefully that's not the case, but let's see. Next team is Haas, and actually, I said Alfa Romeo brought the least. It's this team. They haven't really had a big, I would say a big package. Now, a front wing itself is always a pretty big package. They brought a new looking front wing to Monaco. I remember that being a specific spot. And Azerbaijan also saw a different looking front wing. Now, it was tested before, as it says in really this chart that Louis F1 made. It was tested before that front wing, but that's kind of the front wing they've been using throughout the whole entire season. It's similar to Ferrari's in a lot of ways. They don't have the bigger divots. They kind of have them metally. They have the metal divots onto it instead of cut the way that Ferrari did it. So it's a bit different. They do say that there's a huge upgrade package coming after the summer break. I really hope so. That money really doesn't seem to be doing much considering what they've been doing in the season. I'm actually pretty disappointed. I mean, they still have to allocate a wing for one driver and then a second driver going from Canada to Austria when that was the only thing that they brought. So it's really not looking good for them. I saw their floor. It almost looks as simple as the Williams. So it's, I don't know. It's a team that I really wish could step up, but if they're going to perform like this in Formula 1, they don't belong in Formula 1. In my personal opinion, it's a sport where you got to be upgrading fast. You got to be with the teams. It's not right for them to be just kind of falling behind constantly. They're kind of like a Manor in that way from before. The car is just falling behind drastically, and that doesn't help anybody on the grid watching this type of Formula 1. They're shredding through tires quickly, so something within that suspension is completely wrong. This team is Alpine, who have also not brought a lot of upgrades. Now, they've claimed to be bringing big upgrades, constant upgrades, and in almost every single race this year, they have brought a little bit of something. Now, they haven't brought anything in Bahrain, but that is the beginning of the year, and they didn't bring anything in Miami. So, or actually Austria too. But their big upgrade packages that they've talked about, I guess, is Belgium and also in Azerbaijan. Now, they changed a lot of things. They changed the way that the actual floor, rear suspension, and that rear wing. They've been changing the front wing a lot this year, though, especially in their last 3 races in Silverstone, Hungary, and Belgium. 3 different front wings, and they're all different types of looking front wings. They're trying to see what type of performance they can extract and how it's feeding into the floor. Now, they claim that this Belgium Grand Prix floor upgrade was supposed to be 2/10. We've never seen the actual Alpine floor yet, so I am quite interested to see how that looks in comparison to others. We just recently saw Aston Martin's. I wonder if it's along the lines like that. But the actual car is slowly improving, but it's not there yet. The team's in shambles. I wonder where it's going to continue to. Hopefully on the up. I would like to see Alpine on there. I really liked Renault back in the day. I'm not a fan of the blue, but I did love the yellow and black. But still, I feel for this team. I wish that France had a better team, honestly. And I hope that they bring a lot more. They claim to have a lot more budget and to put a lot more into their upgrades going after the summer break. Now for McLaren. Now this is the team that probably made the biggest step up. As you can see, the beginning of the year was pretty simple. Now their biggest upgrades obviously come in Baku, which is Azerbaijan, and in Austria. Now, these are game-changing packages for both. Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Australia were awful performances for the McLaren. Now, Australia was good because their actual, I guess you can say their tires weren't shredding. That track is not representative at all at how most tracks are. Saudi and Australia don't really shred the tires, but in Saudi, they were nowhere. So it's one of those tracks to where, like, you can have a good performance there if everything goes right. And with the amount of red flags, the amount of problems, they had a good race. But Baku, they were actually able to get into Q3, almost got points in that day on race day, and the car did not look bad. It still has that same drag problem. But then the floor, the halo, the side pods, the central cooling exit, or the rear brake ducts, they brought it all. They brought a new diffuser as well. So they really focused and put all their efforts into, we're gonna put this Austria package here. Now, they have been claiming to actually been making this package from last year. So this is the B spec of the McLaren. So it is essentially a different car. They knew this coming into the season. They're bringing a new car towards the middle point. Now, I remember even claiming in Azerbaijan, that would be their big turning point, but nothing really turned there. They were kind of better, but apparently the way the package from Baku to now came was a very important package, even though they did change the floor that they brought in Baku. So I wonder how much of that actually did matter. But still, it does play a factor, and McLaren is the team that made the biggest step up in the middle of the season. So congrats to McLaren. They still have a lot of budget left from what's being talked about. Clearly, the actual rear of the car struggles. They don't have rear grip, but also they're losing a lot of straight line speed. Now, let's see if they take a book out of Red Bull, which I will talk about on how they've done their how they're able to hold the rear of the car so nicely. Now here is Ferrari. Ferrari is also a team, when you look at this chart, you're kind of like, wow, they didn't really bring too much to the table. But they also changed their concept and philosophy. So Spain is their biggest turning point to looking on this chart. They've brought a couple of different floors. They've tried a couple of different things. I know in Miami they brought a different floor, and that actually supposedly put them back a little bit. They brought a different floor in Spain. So they're going up and down. It's different to say what the team is actually extracting out of their car and can they become better. Now, they have just said on social media that in the news, they've been talking about that the actual car itself will be upgraded till Austin, and then they're switching to 2025. But all these upgrades coming to the car in 2025. That's what I said at first. I meant 2024. They're switching from 2023 to 2024, going into the actual SF24, whatever they're going to call this new car. They're trying to take data from this car and put it into the next one with this new concept that they're still trying to learn and get the best out of. Now, Leclerc and Sainz have talked about in the season that the car has felt good. It even felt like the prior car. So good signs are coming, but not necessarily anything to really say this car is fabulous. Now, in the beginning of the season, qualifying pace, great. Tires shred. A lot better on their tires now. Their pace is actually still pretty decent. Belgium was a great showing. I hope that they continue, because who doesn't love Ferrari being higher at the top? Aston Martin, the team that I follow, when were their biggest upgrades? Now, the actual upgrades in the beginning of the season, they brought practically zilch. Now look at this, couple rear wings, couple beam wings. They really saved a lot of their ATR, which is still actually in the pocket towards the second half of the season. But their biggest upgrade was definitely Canada, to where they changed the side pods, how they did the floor, and even really the shark fin that they added onto it and the engine cover. So that was their biggest to claim upgrade. But they've not really brought a significant floor upgrade, like not anything crazy. They've brought specific floors for both Belgium and for Canada. And in Canada, apparently the floor gave them way too much downforce, which caused a problem with their ride height. And that actually has now been causing them issues on both their rear grip, but also the way the car is performing in qualifying. They're slower. In Sector 2, they actually had to raise the car way too high because of the floor actually hitting the bottom because of the downforce, and that really screwed them in Belgium. Otherwise, that car would have been actually pretty quick there. So they are working on a lot of stuff, a lot to be claimed for the summer break. Huge upgrades coming for that car. So hopefully Aston Martin actually comes out swinging again like they did in the beginning of the season, because this is a team that I can't stand falling back again. I want them to be up, team I follow, but it's nice to see Alonso at the top. And nobody can argue with Alonso being towards the top. It's fun to see. Hopefully a lot more upgrades to come to the car. I'll be for sure covering that when they do in Zandvoort. Now here's Mercedes. Now, like, looking at these graphs, it's crazy to think that AlphaTauri has brought them on most amount of parts, and they actually have by technicality. And Mercedes is one of the slowest, but they've brought the biggest amount of parts. Now, their biggest upgrades were in Monaco and in Belgium. Now, Monaco, they brought side pods. Obviously, that was a huge turning point, but this Belgium package is kind of the different type of really package they've been wanting. That's supposed to bring them more downforce and actually make them more significant. Now, apparently they had a problem on porpoising in Belgium. I'm saying apparently because while it was an issue, it's also probably a setup issue. That track always promotes porpoising. I mean, I think it will up until 2025 or 2026 when we switch to regulations, because that track, you have to run the car really low, and going through La Rouge and Radion, it's tough to have that car on a setup to where you'll go fast through that, go speedy down that straight without the car actually porpoising. These cars with the floors now with these new regulations don't necessarily work that great in Spa. Now, obviously Red Bull was the fastest, but they had to lift going through Radion and La Rouge. So every car will have that issue. I don't think this will be a persisting issue. They've brought a lot more rear grip to the car. That's what I'm hoping with these upgrades. That's kind of what it's been focused in, and the way that they made the floor going into the side pods. This new upgrade should bring a lot more to their rear grip, which should help Hamilton. A little more confidence could bring him a lot further. And I think he was actually pretty happy with the car, except for the actual porpoising itself. But the car didn't perform bad on a track that probably wasn't going to be great for them anyways. They weren't far off Ferrari, and with the right couple of plays and strategy and pit stops, they probably would have beat Ferrari. So a good sign for Mercedes. They've been always continuously going up and up and up. Their setups have been pretty good. Hopefully this continues and they can actually fight in 2024. Now last team, the big dogs. When were their actual big upgrades? Now it's Baku, they brought a big floor upgrade, and in Hungary they brought their paper plane, paper pods, whatever you want to call them, the extra wing on the pod, whatever you want to call them. The biggest upgrade definitely was Hungary though. Now, some people have claimed to be 2/10. Sam Collins is saying that it's a lot more. I think it's also a lot more. I think that this upgrade was actually practically making this car even more invincible than it already is. They've had like, look at this. Look at this actually, I just noticed this. They've had 2 rear wings all season. So they might have been like chopping it up, maybe making it look a little bit different from Grand Prix to Grand Prix. They had a different rear wing in Monaco and in Saudi Arabia. They've practically been using the same rear wing this whole entire time. Now that is absurd. The car is just so beautifully balanced. They do not need to compromise their top speed and low speed cornering. They always have that in the pocket. In Monza, I guarantee they come in with a Monaco style wing and still flame everybody on the grid. So it comes to show you the perfection of getting the car right in that sweet spot. That's Red Bull for you. That's the team. They've just nailed it on the coffin. These upgrades have brought what they needed to bring. Side pod upgrades, the floor. They focused it all in and they have killed it. Now, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. It's one of my biggest videos, so I hope you guys leave a like and a comment. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe. It'd mean the world, and peace.